Welcome to yet another digital service with St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church. We are glad to have you with us. We believe here at St. Andrew's that you and I and all who are watching equally carry the breath of the Creator and the divine image. We reflect that divine image to one another. So we are glad that you have joined in. Even through watching this, you are participating in our ministry and care for one another and for each other. If you have some time, we would appreciate for you to click the link below the video and let us know who you are and where you're watching from, so we know all who have joined us during this time. Thank you.
Hello and welcome. Our call to community today is from Jeff May. Listen to these words. Come, gather, not into a common space, sharing a physical closeness we long for, precluded by wise choice, but come, gather in this common time and a common space. We need to be together. We yearn for connection. We hunger for the familiar faces of friends, the sound of shared voices proclaiming who we are, where we are going, that which resonates with our hopes, our dreams, our values. Come, gather. We are here in this space, made of all spaces, and we share our becoming in this moment. Welcome to our community.
God who's giving knows no ending, from your rich and endless store. Nature's wonder, Jesus' wisdom, costly cross, grief shattered door. Gifted by you, we turn to you, offering up ourselves with praise. Thankful songs shall rise forever, gracious donor of our days. Skills and time are ours for pressing towards your goals as yet unwon. All at peace, in health and freedom, people joined from anyone. Now direct our daily labor, lest we strive for self alone. Born with talents, make us servants to make safe our earthly home. Treasure too you have entrusted, we the stewards of the worth.
Our centering time is from Irish writer Padraig Ó Tuama. Every morning I sit, I kneel, waiting, making friends with the habit of listening, hoping that I'm being listened to. There I greet God in my own disorder. I say hello to my chaos, my unmade decisions, my unmade bed, my desire, and my trouble. I say hello to distraction and privilege. I greet the day and I greet my beloved and bewildering Jesus. I recognize and greet my burdens, my luck, my controlled and uncontrollable story. I greet my untold stories, my unfolding story, my unloved body, my own love, my own body. I greet the things I think will happen, and I say hello to everything I do not know about the day. I greet my own small world, and I hope that I can meet the bigger world that day. I greet my story, and I hope that I can forget my story during the day and hope that I can hear some stories and greet some surprising stories during the long day ahead. I greet God, and I greet the God who is more God than the God I greet. Hello to you all, I say, as the sun rises above the chimneys of North Belfast. Hello.
Our first reading today is from Timothy, chapter 6, verses 17 through 19. Warn those who are blessed with this world's goods not to look down on other people. They are not to put their hope in wealth, for it is uncertain. Instead, they are to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with all that we need as for our enjoyment. Tell them they are to do good and be wealthy in good works. They are to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they'll create a treasure for the future and guarantee the only life that is real. Our second reading is from Matthew, chapter 6, verses 19 through 21. Don't store up earthly treasures for yourselves, which moths and rust destroy and thieves can break in and steal, but store up treasures for yourselves in heaven, where neither moth nor rust can destroy them, and thieves cannot break in and steal them. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be as well. Words from our ancient tradition for our present-day understanding.
We come now to our sermon time, and I personally just want to thank all of you for staying in touch, for staying connected during this time of COVID. It's just going to be remembered as such a strange time. And when I talk to people, what I hear maybe most often is a kind of sense of profound grief that people are going through right now. I think it's a creative grief. I think something important is being born out of it, but I think it's a very hard time for many people. I think to realize that with something like 200,000 Americans at this point have died of this disease, and yet you have a leadership that almost wants to disclaim the fact of all of these deaths and is focused on business over human beings. And I think this creates a profound sadness of realizing what our capitalist economy has always been. And this week, a lot of people were very sad to hear the president, the White House, saying that federal agencies are now being pressured not to do anti-racist training, that the idea of white privilege is seen as anti-American, and that's in quotes. And this creates a profound sadness in people who kind of lived in denial of the racism of the country. And there's just kind of a realization that there are many Americans, maybe 37%, who have no intention of ever sharing this nation fairly with people of color. So the question that I have addressing our scripture today, and the question I invite you to also ask during this 15 minutes or so, is, does religion really have anything to say that is healing in our world today, in these circumstances? Jesus in this passage is going to say, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin, sometimes translated rust, where moths and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourself treasures in heaven, where moths and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Now we can understand that as escapist, as saying that you're going to be mistreated in this life, that there will be injustice as long as we're alive, but then once we get to heaven, everything will be corrected. The idea that on earth, we have to put up with abuse, but that when everything is lifted into heaven, then we will be given a true treasure. And obviously that explanation of the passage has been used to deny injustice going way back, and used by televangelists to fleece their congregations going way back. That by giving to me, by giving to your church, to your minister, to your pastor, you're somehow giving to Jesus and God, which That's very strange math. But what I think is important to realize is that we can't use modern concepts to understand what someone like Jesus or Buddha or Confucius is saying. That we have to understand that they were maybe speaking more profoundly than sort of the literal understanding. In the ancient world, very often the idea of heaven was used to talk about whatever is transcendent. That this is very hard for us to get to. When we look up in the sky, we no longer see this kind of clockwork of precision and exactitude. We don't see these almost like living intelligences that are these, glowing lights. We see an explosion. So it's very hard to get emotionally where I think Jesus is talking about today. In the ancient world, the skies were almost your entertainment at night. They were the map for life. You knew all the constellations. Throughout the course of the year, you heard these stories. And what the stories did, they were mythological, but what they taught you is, what does it mean to be a human being in the cosmos? So looking up the sky was sort of like coming home. It was like realizing that there's some kind of wisdom or guidance written into things. And when people looked up at the sky, I think what Jesus is saying by heaven, possibly, is that we can fall in love with the way of things. That our lives will always be a mixture of good and bad, of pain and pleasure. But we can love all of that together in life. We can ask, what is life? What is the way of life? What is the way of things? Sometimes called the way of heaven back in the day. Now, like I say, I think that's kind of a leap for us emotionally to try to get to that point. So I think by translating it into more modern imagery, I think we can get what Jesus may be talking about here. And that is, I think we relate to the beach a lot more emotionally than we do to the sky. Then we go to the beach, there's some part of us that seems to remember the deep intuition that we come from the sea. That our tears are like seawater, our blood plasma is essentially seawater. And when we go to the ocean, to the beach, we have a kind of sense of homecoming. A lot of us do. That we have a sense that we're returning to our source, to our origin. Someone said, the beach is in our blood. Everyone in our family returns to the beach instinctively, just like the sea turtles. I can't find the author of that, but I like the quote. So when Jesus is talking about the sky, there's more of a kind of sense of the understanding the cosmos. We're children of the stars. That's a very modern understanding. But the ancients understood that too, at least intuitively, that we belong to the whole cosmos. So even though life can be very unfair, it can be short, it can be tragic, that we're part of a larger story. And I think this is the kind of comfort that Jesus is trying to say to us. I think what he's trying to say, I think there's kind of three thoughts that I'm trying to weave together here. That when we love that which is passing, when he's talking about the earth, he's talking about the realm that comes and goes, that passes, that belongs to chance. But when we fall in love with the whole of things, with the life process itself, with the way of heaven or the way of the beach, when we go to the beach, we have the sense the tide goes in, the tide goes out. But somehow that's a relaxing thought, because what we're doing is putting our little lives with all of its problems in the larger context of the flow of things. Of course, life is give and take. Life is gain and loss. That's the process. And when we're there, it's beautiful, right? But we're seeing all these seashells. Those are all broken lives. And if we lived at the individual level, the beach would be a very depressing place. I mean, all those shells are used to be people's backbones. So, fish people anyway. So this is a profound sense of placing our little life. You're not losing the idea of what's important to you. You still love and you still try to enjoy things. but you remember the larger context out of which you have emerged, been created, or evolved. Schweitzer said at one point, he said, just as the wave cannot exist for itself, but is ever a part of the heaving surface of the ocean, so must I never live my life for itself, but always in the experience which is going on around me. I think Schweitzer had a sense of the common life. It seems to me very obvious that Jesus had a sense of the common life. And I may be mistaken in terms of the specifics of what he's saying, but I think in the Sermon on the Mount as a whole, when he says, look at the birds of the air, look at the flowers in the field, it's reminding us of this larger pulsing life and loving the way of life. And one good way of talking about it is the way of heaven. The treasures there, this is probably a useless fact, but the word for treasure is the word we get the thesaurus from. So it's not necessarily gold and silver. It's the things that are most valuable to the heart. You think of the little drawer that parents have. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, of the poems, the cards that you made for them, the accomplishments, the grades that you made. And these would not be treasures to anybody else, but to someone who loves you, those are more important than silver and gold. And Jesus is trying to say the treasures of your heart are like that. They belong to the whole of life. So he said, don't pile up treasures where moths and rust and things like that devour. Don't limit yourself to time. You live in time, but you don't belong to time. It's what Jesus is trying to teach, I believe. So there's great pain that comes into our life if we love that which is passing as though it was permanent. We can learn to love the whole of things to this flow. And Jesus is going to say, make that which can't be taken from you, those deep inner treasures, make that the treasure of your life. Because where that is, that's where your heart's going to be. That's where your emotions are going to flow. The Stoics used to teach that the more we value things that are outside our control, the more we suffer. And if you think about that, that has to be true. The more we love the things of time, the things that are passing, the more life can be disappointing and can lead us into despair even. But if we see those brief moments as these brilliant, blissful experiences of the life process, of the whole life process, if we go into our loving of the sacred other as realizing that we both pass, but everybody's going to die. When we pretend that's not true, it takes us out of the river of life. It leaves us stranded on the shoreline. So Jesus says, where your treasure is, what you love, what you focus on, what you try to hold on to, your emotions are naturally going to follow that. Where your treasure is, your heart will be. St. Augustine said a little more specifically. He said, where your pleasure is, there is your treasure. Where your treasure is, there is your heart. Where your heart is, there is your happiness. Let me say that again. This is St. Augustine, who for all his problems did understand that Christianity is supposed to be about love. But he said, where your pleasure is, there's nothing wrong with pleasure. Pleasure is a good thing. Where your pleasure is, though, that's where your treasure is going to be. That's what you're going to value. Where your treasure is, there your heart is. And where your heart is, there your happiness will be. So as much as we enjoy the passing, we have to love it as passing, as temporary, as impermanent. Because when we love it as though it were permanent, it will break our hearts. I think another way of trying to understand what Jesus is saying, Alan Watts put it this way. He said of life, we have to discover that there is no safety, that seeking safety in life is painful, and that when we imagine we have found it, we don't like it, right? We're bored. It has no worth to us because it's the flow of life, the ebb and flow, like standing at the beach. We would never want the tide just to come in and never go back out again, but we treat life like that. We want to give and not lose, and yet that's not the game that we're playing. That's not the pulse of things. So in a sense, what a teacher like Jesus is saying is align the pulse of your very being to the larger pulse of life. Make your heart's treasure the way of things altogether. Don't fall in love with things that are going to tear your heart out if you can keep from it. Like the beach, our lives have great storms, but I think it was Van Gogh that said, but they also have pearls. But these storms, like the ocean, they give us treasures, but they're treasures of the heart. They're not things that maybe anybody else will see as important, but to you, they are everything. So again, what I think might be said here, that Jesus might be saying, that would apply very much to the situation we are in, is when we love things that are passing, it breaks our heart. But we can fall in love with the way of things, with the ebb and flow of things, with the way of heaven. If we want to be happy in the most profound sense, joyful in the most profound sense, then to make our treasures, our heart's treasures, those deep spiritual things that cannot be taken from us. Let's close again with Alan Watts' statement, because I think it's maybe what Jesus is trying to share with us. What we have to discover in life is that there is no safety, and that seeking safety is painful, and that when we imagine that we have found it, we don't like it. Or as Jesus said, those who seek to save their lives will lose it. Well, thank you for being here today. If you're interested, we're having a conversation 7 o'clock today. You can go on our website and find the site of that, get feedback, explore this passage even more profoundly and deeply. But again, thank you for not losing contact. Thank you for remaining a part of this connectedness. If you're from somewhere else, you're not a member of St. Andrews, and you're coming to our website, hope you feel also included and also valued. So as you go out into this week, take care of your heart. Hold on to those things which cannot be taken from you. I leave you now to your own reflection on these words.
Hi. Despite our no longer meeting in person, the work of the church still continues. All the benevolences and ministries that we're a part of, that we've committed to, they still need our help, whether that's with our time, our talent, or money. Groups like our sanctuary needs, where we're helping Hilda and Yvonne and taking care of them, their need for meals, household goods, everything it takes to make a home. They still need us. Food Pantry still needs us to care for our members of our community that are struggling right now. We live in a community that is interconnected, and we're able to affect lives that we might not even be aware of. But that's the beauty of being a part of a community. We all help and we all pitch in together. If you'd like to donate time, check the e-news. If you'd like to donate talent, e-news as well. But if you'd like to contribute financially, if you look down in the description of the video below, you'll see a link to www.staopen.org/donate. And you can donate there. And if you'd like, you can actually line out which ministry you'd like to make a special contribution to, whether that's the Sanctuary Care Group, whether that's Food Pantry. We have all these ways that we can make the world a more loving, a more just, and a more compassionate place. Thanks for working with us.
We pause now for our prayer time as we join our hearts together in love and solidarity, carrying one another's joys and concerns as a community of love. Marianne is home from the hospital and feeling better after her surgery. Her daughter Laura will be starting chemotherapy for cancer in Georgia. Sandy's dad will be going to rehab after his recent hospitalization. Bill is on hospice care at home. Veronica, a meditation group member, asks for prayers for her daughter, son-in-law, and their family as they grieve the tragic loss of her 16-year-old granddaughter. Steve's brother has been hospitalized after a stroke in Baltimore. And Emily has been hospitalized. As we enter into a new month, we remember those people of color who died at the hands of police in August. We grieve their deaths and repent of our complicity in systemic white supremacy that continues to wreak injustice and violence among God's beloved children. We pause now to say their names. Marco Benito. Hassani Best. Derek Manuel Bonilla. Jose Manuel Castro. Damian Lamar Daniels. Liana Gilmore. Michael Anthony Harris. Roberto Hernandez. Jonathan Jefferson. Dijon Kesey. Anthony McLean. Zalathis Melvin. Julio Cesar Moran Ruiz. Jesse David Nava. Trayford Pellerin. Adrian Jason Roberts. Everardo Gonzalez Santana. Marco Antonio Sigala. Julian Edward Roosevelt Thompson. Santos Anthony Villegas. May God grant them eternal rest and make perpetual light shine upon them. Let us pray. Take flesh in our hands, O Holy One, that they might cook meals that nourish, plant seeds that grow life, create art that inspires, touch tenderly bodies that ache, Take flesh in our feet, that wherever we may find ourselves, kitchen tables, altars, bars, hospitals, prisons, bedrooms, sites of conflict, places of peace, we will be rooted in the assurance of our power and possibilities. Take flesh in our voice, that we might call for the mighty to be torn from their thrones, speak words of compassion and love, and whisper, "Thank you," to every source of beauty that upholds us. Take flesh in our gut, in our bones, in our deepest places of knowing, that we might listen to that which moves us without words, to the wisdom of feeling, to that which we have silenced by the tyranny of reason. Take flesh in our skin, our curves, our wrinkles, our scars, in every detail of these bodies, that we might begin to honor the holy we wear. Take flesh in our eyes, that we might weep tears worthy of all that has been lost, all that has been taken, all that has been betrayed. Take flesh, O God, in our beating hearts, that we might keep fighting for collective life, keep believing in divine possibilities, keep loving despite our trembling, keep turning towards each other. Come, come, God with us. And now, in the name of God enfleshed Jesus Christ, we join our hearts together to pray as Jesus taught, saying, Parent of all creatures whose dwelling extends beyond this world, let no one trivialize your being. Let your order prevail. Let your intentions come to be for creation and for yourself. Give us each day no more than we need, and forgive us when we take for ourselves the well-being of others, as we forgive others who seek to take ours. Lead us away from our dreams of power, that we may be whole, satisfied in you. Amen.
For our benediction, we're going to rephrase an old Jewish benediction. As you go out into this week, know that love will bless and keep you. Know that love will shine upon you. Know that love will fill you with grace and affirm who you really are, and will fill you with peace. May you go in peace this day and forevermore.